elections. We'll explore today what's at stake in the election upcoming Sunday. It's the second round presidential election after first round we've had 1.5 weeks ago. And yeah, there's a lot going on in Romania. There's so much attention on the topic. And as many of you know, it also follows a turbulent election last December when the full election result was cancelled. So we'll explore much of what's going on. I won't do that alone, luckily. So to help us make sense of it all, we're joined here by Jochem van Staalduine, a journalist for a couple of newspapers in the Netherlands, such as the Volkskrant, NRC, Groene Amsterdammer, Green Amsterdammer. Like, no, that's maybe not so good English but people will know what I mean. Thank you so much for joining, Jochem. It's a pleasure.
It's great to be here.
And thank you for being with us. Let's just immediately start delving into what's happening. So we have the second round presidential runoff. We have two candidates left, Nico Suurdan and George Simion. So can you tell me a little bit about these candidates? What's their background?
Yeah, of course. There are some similarities between the two candidates, Dan and Simion, and there are huge differences. They are both anti-establishment candidates. They were both activists for a very long time, and they actually know each other from this period of their lives. They know each other for about 20 years. And they both went into politics later and founded their own political parties. That's the similarities. The differences are there are a lot of those. Let's start with Simion. He is a populist. For example, he promised houses for Romanians for 35,000 euros as an election promise, which is ridiculous. No, we will never succeed in delivering on that. He is quite aggressive in his personal style. He puts his hands on shoulders. He pulls the ears of his competitors when he talks to them. I've seen him do that on video. He has called one of his colleagues in parliament a female pork, so scrofa in Romanian. So he's not very subtle in his style. And I think the main characteristic of him is that he's a nationalist. He has been a hooligan at football matches of the Romanian national team. If you have been to Romania, you've probably seen graffiti in the city Basarabia, Romania. Basarabia is Romania, which is about Moldova, the Republic of Moldova, which was done by him. He sprayed it all over Bucharest. So he wants Romania to be bigger than it is. He wants to have Moldova and also parts of Ukraine. And as a consequence, he is banned from entering both these countries right now, which is a weird thing for a future president to have to deal with. His party, Our, gained popularity during Corona. They were anti-mask, anti-media. They believed in a few conspiracies. And I think one key word to describe his policy is souveranism. He believes Romania should be a sovereign country, that is being held down by other countries in the EU and by some politicians in the establishment. So his policy is about gaining pride and independence. So it's very emotional. It's a bit vague. It's not very concrete. Nico Suurdan, on the other hand, is calm. He is smiling. He is quite progressive. He's also an outsider, but he has experience in government. Right now, he's the mayor of Bucharest. He was educated as a mathematician. He won gold twice at national Olympiads. So he's quite good. He did a PhD in Paris.
In what sport? Oh, like in the mathematician thing. Ah, okay.
So with a team of Romanians, he was the best student of mathematics in the world.
Okay.
He did a PhD in Paris. I've seen him talk about mathematics in French, and I did not understand the mathematics and neither the French. He came back to Romania to find some activist organizations, and then a few years later he founded the USR, the Save Romania Union. He left the party after a year. He had some disagreements with his party members because he's a bit more conservative than his party members. The USR wanted to be pro-LGBT rights, and he is somewhat less pro. He doesn't really want to take a position on gay marriage, for example, which might also be for political reasons because Romania is quite Christian and conservative. So he might just be thinking They get that he's more popular when he doesn't speak out on this topic. He became mayor as an independent candidate and even got re-elected last year. He's quite popular. And his key priority will probably be fighting corruption once he's in government.
And that also made him very popular in Bucharest, right? His fights against corruption, because when he became mayor, a lot also changed in the city, what I heard.
He did some good things from what I've heard as well. There's one famous incident at Piazza Uniri in the center where he stopped one of the sectoral mayors. Bucharest has 6 sectors and they all have their own mayors. And he stopped one because the permits weren't there for the renovation of some building. I don't even remember which building. And it was a very big incident and he gained a lot of popularity with this. And there's all in all, he's gotten a good reputation, which is why he got re-elected. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What I, by the way, always forget to say is that people that are watching this can also ask questions in the Q&A. So I've always forget this in the introduction. So it's good to say it nonetheless. So if you have any questions for Jochem, please ask him in the chat below, and I will make sure to follow up on them. So to continue, we have these 2 candidates, Simion and Dan, but maybe it's also good to look back a little bit on the first round. And what kind of candidates were there, and also who endorsed who, and what will be also the chances for the Sunday vote, because there was also a candidate from the established parties, PSD and PNL. I think the name is Crin Antonescu, and there is also Victor Ponta. And they both did also quite well in the first round. They didn't manage, of course, to gain second place, but they did manage to get around 15% and also 21%. It was really a tight race between Dan and Antonescu. So what happens afterwards? Who endorsed whom, and what's the role of the current political parties in the second round?
The Ponta had quite a nationalist style. Simion is a fan of Trump, and Ponta very clearly did the same thing. He had the same kind of slogans and same kind of speech. I haven't seen that he spoke out for Simion. I'm not sure he did, but his voters are likely to go there anyway. The PNL, one of the established parties, has spoken out for Dan. And the PSD has not as of yet, and they have gotten criticized for it from the Europe Parliament, mainly from Manfred Weber.
From the EPP party, and they are also affiliated with PNL, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They say that the PSD should support Nico Jordan, and it might sound a bit strange, but I think it not supporting Dan openly might be the best thing for Dan to do, because I have to track back a little for this. The established parties in Romania are very unpopular, and especially the PSD, the Social Democrats, are very unpopular. They've been in power almost for all of the last 35 years. There are a few exceptions, and they are the embodiment of corruption, of everything that's gone wrong in the country. They are really the heirs of the communist period. And I've also heard PSD mayors and representatives say that by not speaking out, they might be helping Nico Jordan, because it might cost him more if they say, we like this guy. Because voters are so anti-PSD that this might be the right strategy for them to choose.
Yeah, exactly. And and you lived in Romania for quite some time, so you also saw these elements in society a lot of times. And how would you declare like this anti-PSD and anti-PNL sentiment? In what kind of topics, what kind of ways is that visible in society?
It's been a long time. It started, I think, with Roșia Montana. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there was a big protest against the plan to allow a Canadian mining company to open a gold mine somewhere in Romania. And this was the first time that protesters got together. Both Simion and Dan were there, by the way, protesting. For the first time, a group of Romanians succeeded in protesting And getting a big project like this stopped. The Canadian company that wanted to open a gold mine was not allowed to. And after this, there were a few waves of protests against people in power. And the people in power were always PSD, sometimes with PNL, sometimes by themselves. There were the Dragna years. He was prime minister. He's now in jail. Perhaps he's even released already, but he was for a few years in jail for frauding elections. And he, at some point, had a plan of legalizing corruption to a certain scale, which drew huge protests. Again, there was also collective when the nightclub burned in the middle of the night, and a lot of people died, many more than should have, or many deaths could have been avoided if there would have been the right permits, if there would have been better care in hospitals. And all of these things are pinned on the one government that is in power and has been in power. And I would say not unfairly so. So this sentiment has been there for a lot of years. What has surprised me at this election is that our has gotten so big. There has been a protest movement for years. There was being USR, the party that Dan founded, and there was the established parties, PSD and PNL. What has been surprising here recently is that so many Romanians went to our and the USR, because it seems that the hate for the established parties has gotten even bigger. And I'm not sure why. It might be Corona, might be inflation, might be something else.
Yeah, and it's also, of course, ties the support for our also, I think, ties into what happened in the presidential election to last December when Georgescu became so big. And there are a lot of supporters of Georgescu now voting for Simion, right?
Yes, Simion even succeeded in getting more votes than Georgescu and Simion combined last time, because Simion was fourth candidate, number 4 in November, December. He was also participating then, and right now he got more than he and his competitor did back then. So yeah, it might have.
Yeah. Is there any research being done on where these voters come from? Are these non-voters before, or are they also coming from other parties? Do you know?
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
After the election in November, a university professor complained in Bucharest. I think he's a sociology or politicology. That we know so little about why people vote here in the Netherlands. We know why people, we somehow know how people vote or what their opinions are, but this kind of research is not really done in Romania. So we know very little, unfortunately.
Yeah, and there is of course also
guess based on the programs of the style, and this is why they're becoming popular.
Yeah, and analysis of speaking to people, because there's also a very big city-rural divide in Romania, of course, between people in Bucharest who vote for Dan, more cosmopolitan votes, and people in countryside, more religious, more conservative, that have voted for Georgescu in the presidential election last December and now vote for Simion, probably. Okay, let's get back maybe to this presidential election again, because you already said then the supporters of Ponta who took 15%. In the first round, and Simion, I think it was around 40, right? So in that sense, if I do like a quick maths here, which Dan is probably a little bit better than me, but still, Simion can easily win the second round. Is that also the case? Is that also how it's being perceived?
Simion has a huge advantage. Just looking at the first round, he got 41% of the votes, and Dan got 21%. So he has double the votes in the first round. With Ponta's votes, 15%, he would get to a majority. Yes, that's very simply put. If all these people come out to vote again, and if all of the Ponta voters go to Simion, but perhaps not all of them will come, and also perhaps some people will come to vote that didn't come the last time, that didn't come last week. I've seen some prediction that the voter turnout might be 10 or even 15% higher now.
Okay.
Not sure. We'll see if that happens. There's one sondage. Is the Romanian word? Peiling.
Okay. Poll. Election poll. Yeah.
Poll that was done, I think, a few days ago, in which Simion had like 54% and Dan 45%,
Okay.
which means Dan is getting closer. He's getting support from a lot of sides. A lot of people are speaking out for him. So it's not done. It's not the race is still going on, and we'll see who wins. It's not sure, but what is sure is that Simion is the favorite.
Yeah, exactly. And there is also, probably now also a bigger group rallying behind Dan from a variety of parties. There was also a big protest yesterday I saw in Bucharest with a lot of people coming up and speaking out for Europe, for the support for Ukraine. And yeah, it looked like it was a support also in favor of voting for Dan, right?
Yeah, I think it was on the Day of Europe, not Sunday.
Yeah. Okay, it was earlier. Yeah.
There was some support. Also, there's international support for Dan. I think Dan is favored, but the markets are supporting Dan. The course of the Romanian currency went down after Simion won this big. So the markets hope that Dan will win to have some economical perspective. But still, that doesn't mean he will.
No, exactly. And looking towards the possibility of a Simion win, what kind of repercussions will those have for the international outlook of Romania, how Romania positions itself in foreign policy, but also internally, because for the Romanian party politics, you will also have huge consequences. Maybe to start with the first one, internationally, because you also already mentioned that Simion has a travel ban in both Moldova, I think 5 years, Ukraine 3 years. What are the expectations if he will win the elections for Romanian foreign policy?
It will be interesting to follow. He has said different things about Ukraine, but I think he is not going to support, he doesn't want to support arming Ukraine anymore. He's also said he's willing to follow whatever Trump does regarding Ukraine and its war against Russia. So that's the most pressing foreign issue that that has to be resolved somehow. I think he's trying to imitate Viktor Orban in a way.
Okay.
Where he's gonna protest helping Ukraine, and he's gonna ask for some things in return. So he's gonna want maybe some land even to be given from Ukraine to Romania, or he's gonna ask for some rights for the Romanian minority in Ukraine. I'm speculating here. We don't know what he wants, but this does sound like a possible way for him to go. As far as Moldova is concerned, I'm not sure what his plans are, but Maia Sandu and the Moldovan government have already supported Dan. They're not big fans of Simion, so it will not be friendly. And Simion has said that he does not want to just simply annex Moldova. Also, there's no way he can do that. But he wants Moldova to join Romania after referenda and whatever. We'll have to see how it works out. What's for sure is that he will be a pain in the ass of the EU. I think he will try to be like Orban. He doesn't have the power that Orban has, but he will try to speak up. He has repeatedly said Romania should get up from its knees in the EU, that it should not accept how it's been treated in the last years, which speaks to a lot to how Romanians feel about how they are treated in the EU and in other countries where they work. And we'll see about that. And where Dan is concerned, the competitor, it's not very interesting. I think he won't drop the boat in foreign policy. He'll just support Ukraine, and he's a decent progressive candidate. So it'll be more of the same.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe following up on the what you said about the EU, is because in Romania the support for the EU is still very high, right? It's like 90% of the Romanian population who wants to remain into European Union. But on the other hand, there's also a lot of discontent, people being angry on the EU, on the financial position of Romania and EU, and getting the dignity back. In these kind of sentences are being used a lot. And how does that rhyme with each other? Because it's like, it's also quite difficult to comprehend in that sense, wanting to stay in the EU, but also being very mad on what's happening.
Yeah. Simion doesn't want to leave the EU. He wants them, so he's not anti-EU in that sense. He wants Romania to get his dignity back and go up from its knees. And I think this speaks to how a lot of Romanians feel, mainly in foreign countries. In the diaspora, Simion has gotten great results. In the Netherlands, I think 46%, which is just slightly more than done, 44. But in Germany, Spain, and Italy, Simion got 74% in all of these countries, which is enormous. And the diaspora vote is big. I should mention it's 1 million out of 9 million votes last year.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
And he's speaking it more of on an emotional level, I think, to these people, both in diaspora, but also in the poorer communities that maybe haven't profited as much from the EU. He wants them to get their dignity back and he wants their lives to get better, because there are a lot of Romanians who haven't profited from the EU, who feel they haven't profited, because you could say that the diaspora, the Romanians living and working in Germany, have profited, although they might not see it that way themselves, because they're, the conditions are bad. The people that have profited from the EU are more likely to be done voters. There's the inclusion in Bucharest, but also in the diaspora, a lot of people that have voted for done as well. And they tend to vote for him. So I don't see it as a paradox that people are critical of the EU. I think they want a better life within the EU, and they feel they deserve it. I don't think that's a contradiction.
No, exactly, clear. And because you're doing a lot of research on the Romanian diaspora in the Netherlands, also abroad in Europe, and in the Netherlands, what do you hear when you speak with people from Romania about these elections, about voting? What kind of narratives do you hear? Are people also really wanting to go back to Romania but unable to get a living there, and also staying here and angry in that sense? What are things you're hearing from people?
What you hear is discontent. People are unhappy. A lot of migrants have the dream of going back. There's a lot of people who say, when I'm old, I'm going to go back, or I have to go back to take care of my parents when I get older, but I can't. It's usually followed by, but I can't. So there's a dream of being in their own country and having all their family and friends close to them. But everybody knows that the wages are much lower, and it's hard to live off a Romanian wage still. Although they have grown. So there is the wish that I think Simion speaks to, that to go back and live and for everything to be all right again. What I think I mainly hear from migrants is their unhappiness with the country. A lot of them say they left because of how the country is run, because of the little chances they get back home, and that they want a better life for themselves, obviously. There's one thing that I usually do when speaking to Romanians, and the conversation is not going great. I try to start talking about highways, which is a very common complaint, that the roads in Romania are pretty bad, and the government hasn't succeeded in building highways. There's very few of them. It takes a century to go from north to south or from east to west. The trains as well, but people like to complain a lot about the highways. It's a common thing to discuss and to complain about how bad things are going. So yeah, people are very critical.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also looking towards the live chat, and I've got already one question is about the role that Georgescu will play in this election, and how he also teams up with Simion. Can you tell something about that?
Simion is not playing. Georgescu is not playing a big role right now, but he's there in the background. He will, if Simion wins, he will probably come back. Simion has said that he will nominate Georgescu as prime minister. So he might come back, which would be very weird, because Georgescu was supported by a third nation state, which we all know is Russia, but we can't say it. And it will be very strange to have someone supported by Russia in the government of the EU member state. It might be a consequence of Simion winning, but we'll have to see that happening first for that to be the case. No.
Yeah. And also, Simion also said that he maybe want to call a referendum on like redoing the presidential elections what happened in December. Is that something which is for real something he really wants to do, or is it?
No. He's been asked about it again. He said that indeed.
Yeah.
But when he was asked again, he said that his voters will understand that he doesn't mean that in a literal sense.
Okay.
He wants to make it right. That's what he wants. So he believes in justice.
Exactly.
So it will be more likely that Georgescu will be named a prime minister if Simion comes to power, which will be a problem. Also in forming a coalition, because a prime minister needs a coalition, and by itself, it's very. This will be mentioned after the first round of the elections last week. The government, the temporary fell, and we now have a temporary government. So the new president has to name a new prime minister, and there has to be a new government with a majority, which means if Simion wins, then our, maybe led by Georgescu, will have to form a government, and it's unclear with whom they will be able to. The PSD is not very likely to join them, and it's the other way around is even less likely, because our is anti-establishment and PSD is the establishment.
Yeah.
And they can't work with USR because it's a complete different party. So if Georgescu is named prime minister, then it's really hard to predict what will happen in Romanian politics next. A lot of chaos and perhaps a lot of years without a functional government, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the moment it's something I wanted to ask you still. So thanks for bringing it up. Because at the moment there is a coalition. There was a coalition between PSD, PNL, and a minority Hungarian party, and it fell apart right after the first round because also the prime minister stepped down, the PSD prime minister Ciolacu. So what's the situation now? Are people just awaiting what's happening for the second round, and then afterwards they will see how they can form a new coalition, or?
There's a temporary government led by Ilie Bolojan from the PSD. But he has a maximum term of, I think, a month or two, maybe, I think 45 days, which is a month and a half. And then there will have to be a new government, a new majority. But I think we're waiting first for the presidential elections, and then we'll see, because the new president will have to appoint a new prime minister. And even if Dunn wins, there's no easy way to a new government, because also the USR, which still, so Dunn is not a member of the USR, but they're still pretty close. And the USR could be part of a government, but then should join the PSD and PNL, which are the establishment parties, and USR is not, just like ours. So it's going to be a problem either way to have a new majority government. Actually, the best option for a majority is still PSD, PNL, the Hungarian minority, and then I think you also need there's some minority seats in government. I think you need them as well, if I correct.
Yeah.
So that's a Serbian guy and an Albanian guy. There's some minorities that got a seat, which is totally establishment. So the consequence will be that the establishment parties in government will fight the anti-establishment president, well, whether that is Simion or Dunn, for the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And are new parliamentary elections, are those likely? Is that something that's possible, or is that in the Romanian constellation doesn't happen a lot?
It doesn't happen a lot. I'm trying to think of the last years. What usually happens is that the president just appoints someone else, and then someone else, and someone else, until it works. I'm not sure we ever had but I'm not sure about whether that happened or not. But it's not usual.
Okay.
So it might be. It's possible that the future president will appoint first someone from his preferred party, and if that doesn't work, from another party. Nico Dunn, for example, has already mentioned that he might appoint Ilie Bolojan from the PSD, who is the current interim prime minister, as the new governor. So there is I just lost my thought. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
No, so on that, there are a lot of parliamentary elections can follow up on each other, but that's not the case in Romania, as you said. So yeah,
You might,
yeah.
you might in the end appoint Ilie Bolojan either from the start or after a while,
Yeah.
and then a majority coalition will be formed, and a lot of conflict will follow.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for this overview. I think it's really clear. And that's also very much a difference in then yeah, you see also how the political systems work differently in a lot of countries, which is logical. But of course, when we go to the southern neighbors, to Bulgaria, we see the elections every 3 months, every 4 months. But that's another discussion. So we have the second round coming up Sunday. We have the two candidates, Simion, Dan, and indeed Simion is at the moment clear favorite, but Dan looks like he's crouching up a little bit. And it will have major implications for foreign policy of Romania, as you also said, because also the president also represents Romania in the EU meetings, and it is an important position in that sense. Maybe what's still good to do, I'm also looking towards the chat, but we have no other questions at the moment incoming. But I do have one more question is about the current role of social media and the current role of TikTok in the current presidential election, because of course in the last presidential elections in December, which were fully cancelled, candidate Georgescu was helped tremendously by foreign networks, specifically from the Russian Federation, that paid a lot of funds on TikTok, but also in other ways to promote this candidate. Are there also worries now that this is also happening, and is this something that's going on still, or?
There have been no reports of it happening, but I think we can assume that Russia has not stopped trying to influence European elections. So I'm guessing it might still be happening. There's one big difference, though. In December and November, we in the EU and also in Romania got caught by surprise. So a candidate came out of nowhere, and all the attention he got had been on TikTok. There was no serious coverage of him as a candidate of Georgescu. Hey, what happened?
I think, ja, ik kan hem even in het Nederlands doen, want hij klapte eruit. Want hij is nu ook uit de YouTube. Sorry, ik denk dat er iets misging met Zoom. Moeten we even snel weer opnieuw aanzetten. Let's see whether we're back. Difficult for me to see. Yeah, we're back. Okay, apologies, Jochem. I think something went wrong with the internet or with the Zoom services, but we're back. So luckily we're not fully out of the radar. Coincidentally, it happened when we started talking about Russia, but hopefully that's not.
We all know what happened
Yeah,
there.
that's strange. But sorry, Jochem, please continue, because you are in the middle of your point of what's currently happening with the intelligence services and the TikTok campaigns, and also whether it's going on right now or not.
Yeah. So it's probably going on right now as well, but we're not caught by surprise anymore. So I'm sure the secret services are looking into it, and they are monitoring it, and they are doing something about it. Also, TikTok has made some promises since about monitoring campaigns that are paid for by politicians or by countries or by third parties. So we're not surprised in that sense. We're also not surprised in a different way. Georgescu came out of nowhere, which is why the serious media, the TV stations, the newspapers, hadn't really written about him. They had not written profiles. They had not looked into his past. So the Romanian public, had gotten only one side of the story, which was Georgescu's story. They only had gotten his information and his program and his ideals, which were very positive, of course. But the neutral side, the neutral commentary from media was not there. And right now, that's different, because he is not, the popularity of the extreme right is no longer a surprise. So there has been a lot of reporting, both on Georgescu himself, but also on Simion. So I think, regardless of Russian influence, it's much easier now for Romanians to form an opinion about what's happening in Romanian politics. And it's interesting to see, by the way, that Russian influence or not, the results are quite similar between round one in November and round one last week. In all of these cases, we had extreme right candidates by far number one. The number two was someone from the USR, back then Mosconi, and now Nico Dunn, who comes from the same type of party. And the number three was the PSD, who almost got to the final twice and failed twice. So despite the Russian influence campaign, or despite things changing between November and now, there is end results. So the opinions of the Romanian voters are quite the same.
Yeah. In that sense, without that, there is a lot of research going on in specific areas. You do see that these voter constituencies seem quite stable between December and what happened in the first round 1.5 weeks ago. All right, and by the way, that's also something I wanted to ask, because what happened with Lasconi? Because she was number two, and I think she was quite a promising candidate, what I saw in the first round last December. And then suddenly she's completely gone. And she did participate in the first round of these presidential elections, but she only gained 3%. Was she dropped by the USR party, or?
In the end, it's a dramatic story. So
okay.
She just made it to the finals by her hairs, like the hairs, I think is maybe the expression. And she was ready to face Georgescu and possibly win. So she saw herself already as president, I think. And then the elections were annulled, and she had to go again. And she was still being the candidate for USR. She was promising, but she also got a lot of criticism for the way she is as a politician. She was mainly the alternative candidate. She wasn't highly popular, I think, with the Romanian electorate, which you could see when Nico Dunn decided independently to join in December and to become a candidate, because he single-handedly killed Lasconi's campaign. And in the end, then the USR changed preference when they accepted that Lasconi no longer had a chance, and Dunn was much more popular with Romanians. Lasconi did not drop out, which shows that probably she had some ego, because her being in the campaign could have cost Dunn his place in the final.
Yeah.
But she didn't want to, and I understand, of course, that she's hurt by not becoming president, and also by the elections being annulled, which was a very weird thing to happen. Even though there was Russian influence, but the Romanians still voted. I mean, it's not like there was fraud in the election halls itself. If there was fraud, it was on TikTok. And also the parties that decided to cancel the vote were the establishment parties, as far as Romanians are concerned. So I understand that she didn't want to drop out, and that she went on to the end. But it definitely cost her future as a promising politician, because right now she's being dropped by the USR.
Yeah, exactly. All right, yeah. So and we got one more question, and I also have one more, because it's something I also was wondering, still looking to the cities in Romania. There are also some minorities which are quite prevalent. And if I also look to the election map and the results, there's, for example, the area around Brasov in the middle of Romania, where a lot of people vote for PNL party. And you also see quite some differences with a lot of people in the south voting PSD. In Bucharest, Dunn is very popular. So how can you declare some of these differences? And where would you see Simion doing very well? And where would you see Dunn doing very well in the second round? In which parts of Romania?
The results you're referring to are the first round or the parliamentary elections?
The first round, sorry. So, but
PNL didn't have their own candidate in the first
no,
round.
they had Antonescu, right? Together, yeah.
Antonescu did well for PNL, PSD, and the Hungarians, UDMR, mainly in the west and in the middle north, I'd say, which is where the Hungarians live, the Hungarian minority. So that's where he got a lot of votes. And for the rest, I think usually the PSD candidates do well in the south west, and in the northeast, and more poorer rural areas. But all of these went to Simion, which is pretty. The divide is actually pretty clear about who votes what. The youth and the successful Romanians have voted for Dan, which is in Cluj, which is in Brașov, which is in Bucharest. Those are big cities where people have been earning more, or in any case, parts of those cities, parts of the people there have been earning more in the last 10, 15 years. And the rural population in the more poor areas, and also the diaspora, has mainly voted for George Simion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the diaspora is a special one, but you already explained for a bit why that's the case, especially in Germany, Italy, and Spain, as you said. A lot of people that work there voting for Simion. And maybe final question for me around the vote, and we have one more question from the chat, is about the turnout. You already mentioned that will be very important in the second round. And in the first round, the turnout was around 50%, and second round, what do you think it should be, on around what kind of percentage for Dan to make a chance? Does it have to be very high for him to make a chance, or?
It's very hard to say. Usually in Romanian elections, a higher voter turnout is good for the anti-establishment parties, because the establishment parties have a way of getting their people to the vote. Their voters are usually working for the government, or they're affiliated to the government in some way, and they have a way they always vote. So higher voter turnout usually is good for anti-establishment parties. But in this case, we have two anti-establishment parties, so it's very hard to say if it will make a big difference. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what way the extra voters will go. I'm actually more curious to what the PSD voters and the PNL voters will do. I guess they're more inclined to go to Nicu Jordan, but I'm really speculating, and not Simion, especially after all the commentary Simion has been getting in the last week, and from the press and from other people. And we'll have to see if we have to see where they are going. I think they will decide more than the voter turnout. The voter turnout is important, but it's very hard to predict. I think the voters for Ponta and also for the PSD and the PNL, they will make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that's as you really clearly explained, it's not something that's really easy to catch, because there are now two anti-establishment parties here, and there are a lot of different voter currents in between the parties, and it's really a difficult guess also to make. And that's also for a lot of analysts and polling stations the same way. The final question I got is about the economy, and it's also something you alluded to earlier, Jochem, is about the Romanian currency, the leu, if I pronounce correctly, probably not so well, but it's doing it isn't doing so good. There's a lot of inflation, and also after the Simion win, it even worsened. Is this a big worry in Romania?
The inflation is a big worry.
Yeah.
Leu being low is sucks. It's been creeping to 5. So €1 is worth 5 leu, and it was 4 like a couple of years ago.
Right.
So that sucks, of course, because you can buy less when you go visit a Euro country. But I think the inflation is the biggest problem, because people really have trouble living and paying the rent, and that's going to be an issue. I'm not sure if the election directly influences what will happen. Of course, if there's chaos and Simion will be president, then there's more likely to be chaos, and that will be bad for the economy. But those are like in a few steps that have to be taken. A lot of attention will have to be given to the economy and to battling inflation, which is not something I've heard Simion talk about. But honestly, I haven't heard him talking about anything concrete. He's a populist. He makes promises. We'll have to see how Dan does if he wins. But it's a big thing. It's a big worry for Romanians. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that in some way because I visited the country last summer and it really struck me how expensive, for example, groceries are in Romania.
Yeah.
There's not so much difference. And the Netherlands here, it's a very high income country, of course, and here groceries are also expensive, but the difference was not so big with Romania, with the base level of income being much lower. So yeah, I can imagine it's a very big worry and a big struggle for a lot of people to just have to get to the end of the month with the salaries they have. So that's probably also one of the big reasons that there is a lot of discontent in society about what's happening and the economy also not doing good. That compiles it, of course. So thanks for explaining that a bit more, Jochem. And maybe finally from my side, before we're closing off, because we have no more questions from the chat, and I think we covered a lot of elements of the upcoming elections, is on Sunday. Of course, on Sunday, the vote will be throughout the day. When can we expect like an exit poll? Is it already in the evening?
Yeah, it's in the evening. The Romanian, last time it closed at, I think 9, I think the stations, the polling stations, which is in the Netherlands, it's 8, and in most of Central Eastern Sunlight, well, at the time in most of Europe anyway, it's 8. And the poll comes quite quickly after.
Okay.
So we'll see, and then the counting will start and will slowly come in. The diaspora is usually later when it comes to the counting, and also the big cities are usually later. I would expect when it comes to counting that Simion will start up ahead because the rural area is more likely to vote for him, and Dan will come back later, and we'll have to see if it's a comeback that will make him win or not.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing with the exit poll, and that's that voters don't always admit to voting with Simion, which is why it's very hard to rightly predict how much votes he gets.
Okay.
So the exit poll might be wrong. It has been wrong. It has underestimated Jochem hugely and Simion somewhat. So the exit poll might be off.
That's good to know. Yeah, that's what we've seen in multiple instances, also in other elections with populists. That exit poll, the polls have quite some difficulties in correctly guessing what the result will be, which is of course always very difficult. But okay. And what are your plans, Jochem? Are you going in the Netherlands, for example, visiting some of the polling stations for Romanians in the Netherlands, or
visiting one? My girlfriend is Romanian, so we will go.
You will go? Okay.
I like to join her, although I cannot vote, unfortunately. I feel I should, but they don't let me. And see how it's there. It's not very. It's a polling station. You go.
Yeah.
Then in the evening it'll be about following the result and following the counting.
Yeah, we will as well. So thanks so much for enlightening us and for giving some information about this very complex and very important election that is coming up. It's been a pleasure. Let's keep in touch. And also after the elections, perhaps we can check in and see what happened and maybe get some more guidance from your side why that's the case. So thanks so much, Jochem, for this evening and for all your information.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure, and we also went through some technical difficulties, but also managed. So that's always great. So for the viewers, also thanks so much for joining us for this webinar again, and listening to us and the information about the elections in Europe coming up, and with the European Forum. We're also planning to organize much more of these webinars in the upcoming year. You can follow us on our website, but also by subscribing to our newsletter. I can definitely recommend, of course. And the next election that we will probably cover are the Polish presidential elections, which are coming up end of May, also quite quickly already. So that's the next one coming up. So again, thanks a lot, Jochem. Thanks a lot, and have a nice evening, everybody.